Miami wins again, their seventh straight. The Heat started off slowly, but Jimmy Butler was once again the difference maker, exploding in the third quarter for 18 of his total 36 points. Duncan Robinson and Bam Adebayo also had big games, and it was once again a total team effort. But could Miami be too deep? We answer your questions about the possible rotation and break down the game on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Goldberg. Joining me as always, Dave Ramil. However you're tuning in, YouTube, Odyssey, your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. The Heat scored a season high in their 122-115 win over the Nets on Thursday night. Jimmy Butler did it all, scoring 36 points, including going 2 of 5 on his three-pointers. Duncan Robinson scored 26 points. Bam Adebayo had 20 points. Miami's best offensive performance of the season. The Heat have now won 7 straight games. But what about that offense stood out to you in this one, David?
Just the free-flowing nature of it, everybody moving with intent. I know that sounds like a spoism, but at the same time, that's what I saw anyway. Early on, even though the shots weren't falling, they looked like they were still kind of trying to pick their spots. Bam was having a little trouble with Nick Claxton. I think he's obviously still one of those challenges in terms of being able to attack length, and Claxton is mobile enough where he can force Bam into tougher looks. But once he got Day'Ron Sharpe onto him, I think he was able to kind of figure it out, and from there, it just kind of steamrolled. And Jimmy just taking over the game. And I think just, again, moving with purpose, knowing exactly what he had to do to attack Mikal Bridges, finding weak spots in the defense. Brooklyn's defense overall is still pretty good. At least they have good defensive players, but Miami was able to find open opportunities, whether it was cutting along the baseline, constantly moving off ball, just a lot of movement. And it was just, again, the version of this team that we hadn't seen earlier in the season and had been slowly growing. And then, of course, now with Tyler Herro, I know a lot of people are going to point to how good Miami's offense looked, but it absolutely looked very free-flowing.
The first few minutes were rough. The Heat made one field goal in the first 4.5 minutes of this game, and Brooklyn was flattening them out. Miami had a really hard time with their length. And I was kind of looking at this thing. I was like, oh, boy, is this sort of it for the win streak? Is this it for all the good vibes that we've built up here? And credit the Heat. They figured it out on the fly. They said, okay, they're flattening this out. They're doing this. They're doing that. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z ended up being, let's just move the ball a little bit more. Use the word intent. I think that's a good word here. A lot more pick and roll in this game than I think we're accustomed to seeing. We saw Duncan Robinson running pick and roll with Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry getting to the basket in his limited minutes, Jimmy Butler putting on a show, obviously. They did have a good night from the mid-range, which loosened everything up after that. And you can't really count on that every game, but they're not trying to count on that every game. They kind of are, but they were really counting on it in this one. When I said it was their best offensive game of the season, not just from a raw point total, but points per possession overall, they scored 131.9 points every 100 possessions in this game. They were in the half court, phenomenal, 116.3 points per 100 possessions in the half court tonight. Those are both elite marks. Not something you can count on, obviously, every single night. But when you get a game like this, and we've seen the offensive growth now from Duncan Robinson, we've talked a lot about that. Bam Adebayo, we've talked a lot about that. Jimmy Butler taking 4 3-pointers in the first half, missing his first 2, and then taking and making the next 2 to make sure that he got back to his 50% for the season, and showing the sign, flashing the 5-0 to the bench there, keeping track. I love that. He ended up shooting one late, and so now he's a smidge under 50%. So he went 2 for 5 on the night, but who cares? I love all of that from Jimmy Butler. I love that he's keeping track because it's an important part of his game. It is, and if he's going to stat pad, I'm here for that version of stat padding.
Yeah, we talked about it early. We saw enough of a small game sample to think, well, is this something that's going to be part of his repertoire? And sure enough, he has maintained that pretty consistently. the attempts are low, but still to shoot at 50% this early or just under, I'm sure he'll go 3 of 5 in the next game just to kind of even it up, just so he can continue to point it out to the bench. But yeah, he definitely looks like he's much more comfortable, recognizes when he has those opportunities. He's got to take those shots. He's got to let it fly. And I think it certainly caught Brooklyn's defense off guard. They weren't sure what to do with this and had to kind of respect that. And then with Duncan flying around, making so much, just moving so constantly, flaring out to an open 3-point spot, using the pick and roll with Bam or anybody else who was setting a screen, just really nice movement offense. It just looked really, really sharp.
There on the 3-pointers though with him, because when players are giving him that amount of space, he has to take those shots. That's what's happening. They are playing off of him, giving him basically 6, 7, 8 feet of space, wide open shots from 3-point range. I love that he's taking them. You have to take them, because what happened later in that game, David? We saw in the second half, it was the third quarter. I think it was Royce O'Neal playing up on Jimmy Butler, not giving him that space. Jimmy Butler off the right side of the wing. Royce O'Neal playing up on him in his grill. And what did Jimmy Butler do? Jab step left, jab step left, fake left, goes to the right, and then gets a wide open baseline dunk on that baseline at the basket. That's what happens when you're taking those threes, right? You're only going to see, if you're only looking at this game on Twitter, you're only going to see the Jimmy Butler dunk in the third quarter, not what set that up, right? And what set that up, I mean, how often, honestly, do we see Jimmy Butler zoom by a guy from the perimeter to get a dunk at the back? We never see that. That's not his game. But when you start, when defenders have to start playing up on him, that becomes now open. There's more space behind the defender. And if you can get him leaning one way, he's got enough of a first step to get to the basket.
Yeah, it was a really nice play, though. I mean, the fact that he was able to kind of juke him right out of it and then just recognize the lane was open, attacked, and finished with a great dunk. But it was just a really nice game overall. And you kind of hinted at this earlier, but I like the fact that Miami made the adjustments in game, that they're so confident and good enough right now and deep enough, really, because they got contributions from a number of players and figured out how to space it. You know what? If Brooklyn is going to be able to beat us with their length, let's deny that. Let's mitigate it completely by just shooting from beyond the arc and setting up those drives at the basket. And sure enough, just their great transition defense, just a lot of different ways of scoring. And they found those opportunities throughout the game as it continued to progress. So a really good showing for them. They shot 43%.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
43% from 3-point range. And we're able to get to the line too. Again, to point out what you just said, those drives that were set up with those 3-point shots, they were able to attack the basket. If they couldn't get the hoop, they would get the call, and they got to the line 24 times, hit 23 of those. So a really, really strong showing.
Are we buying the offensive evolution here? Because the Heat have won 7 in a row, coinciding with Haywood Highsmith's inclusion in the offense, and that's kind of been like the obvious thing. Hey, they did this, and now that happened, right? But the evolution of the offense has been, I think, maybe more important to what's going on. It was a rough start for them at the beginning of the season. I'm not sitting here claiming that they're one of the elite offenses of the league, but if you're getting this version of Jimmy Butler, who has scored 36 points tonight. What was it? 32 points the night before, something like that. He's now playing like the Heat need him to play. Bam Adebayo is a much better offensive player than he was even last year. 8 of 15 tonight for 20 points, getting to the basket more often. Duncan Robinson is more of a fulcrum of the offense, not just a catch and shoot guy, but a guy who can put the ball on the ground. He had one play where he rejected a Bam Adebayo screen, got to the basket and hit a cutting Jaime Jaquez Jr. down the lane. I was like, what's going on with this guy? Like, where did all this? I understand that he's developing, but like this is such an incredible leap from him in terms of playmaking. It's wild. I mean, he's running the offense sometimes. So like this stuff, I think the individual development is real, and it feels like the Heat are starting to figure out how to kind of take all this individual growth and put it all together into something that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And look, we've seen this from them for years, right? Defense igniting offense. And I think Highsmith has been a part of that, even though he had a kind of subpar game offensively. It's just another body out there. We see with Kevin Love, maybe he'll pull down the rebound, kind of slowly check the floor, see if there's a cutter or somebody already flying down court in transition. Maybe he'll hit the open pass, but it's still a slower half-court offense. With Highsmith, you bring another body down. He forces things at the rim. He can attack the basket. And I think he was just a great defense to offensive shift, and we've seen that growth. So to answer your question, I'm absolutely buying their offensive growth, but I think it also kind of feeds off of their defense as well.
Credit Cookies is next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Go visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL and NBA season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL and NBA.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Well, David, it's time for the tastiest segment in Locked On Heat. It is time to hand out some credit cookies. As always, we have 10 cookies to hand out to various players. I think we're going to start here with Jimmy Butler, who gets a lion's share of our cookies. What kind of cookies are we handing out, by the way?
You're putting me on the spot. You haven't asked me all season what kind of cookies. They haven't been early on. There weren't a lot of wins, so you were kind of just like, screw it, I don't care. They're not going to get any cookies anytime soon. So, and now you've been so caught up in the euphoria of the 7-game win streak. You know what? My son went to Publix a couple days ago and asked very politely for a chocolate chip cookie from Publix in the bakery. And now they give out, they give the kids free cookies now since the pandemic ended. They were doing it before, now they started doing it again. So
they didn't realize they had gotten rid of it.
Well, they weren't kind of handing out cookies to kids during the pandemic.
Understood.
So Publix chocolate chip cookies, and I think Jimmy Butler and his incredible performance, continued growth, the nice balance between the offense, attacking, making plays, shooting, driving to the rim, doing it all. I mean, fantastic offensive performance. He gets 5 cookies.
18 points in the third quarter that basically blew the game open for the Miami Heat. He had at one point scored 11 in a row. If you want to give him points and assists, responsible for 13 straight. Just an unbelievable third quarter. The Heat need things like that. They could go long stretches without a made field goal. So if you're getting just a dominant, we got a huge second quarter the other night from Haywood Highsmith, 12 points in a second quarter one night. That kind of blew the game open for them. We've seen this from Bam Adebayo when Tyler Herro was healthy. We've seen it from Tyler earlier in the season, and Jimmy Butler tonight. I mean, this was the best individual scoring quarter of any player this season for the Heat. 18 points in that third quarter. Outdoing Lonnie Walker, who ended up having 13 points in that third quarter. It was not the duel that I was expecting in this one. But like I said, it was between Jimmy Butler's points and Miami's points overall, what that did to set up his teammates and everything else. I mentioned the flattening out of the offense. Once Jimmy kind of got going, it opened up things for other guys. I think we're going with 5 credit cookies for Jimmy Butler. I want to move right into Duncan Robinson, though, because one of the guys that really helped – I think Jimmy Butler set up Duncan Robinson as the game went on, but if I'm being honest, I think Duncan Robinson set up Jimmy Butler earlier in the game. When everything was getting flattened out, the only guy who was getting anything was Duncan Robinson from the perimeter, because that's the only thing that's available when Brooklyn's not letting you get to the basket. They were packing the paint in this game, maybe more than we've really seen any other team do. Charlotte did it, but they don't really have the personnel. Like, that's not a good basketball team. Brooklyn has a bunch of good, long, big defenders that when they pack the paint, it matters, right? Because when you do try to kick out, they have that speed and that length to close out credibly. But when Duncan Robinson is firing from 30 feet, nobody's able to close out on him if they're starting from a paint position. And when he started doing that, it opened up everything.
Yeah, good point. Look, and the X's and O's, the actual on-court stuff really shows how Duncan has come a long way and just continues to make an impact in games. But I got to say, there was that one play where he ripped the ball. I think it was from Mikal Bridges at the top of the key, just stole the ball, wasn't called for a foul that I think he probably would have been called for every season of his career, except for this one, and then went down court in transition, was spotting open from three-point range, shot it, nailed it, and then gave the look around like, nobody can guard me. Like that, he is just feeling insane confidence at this point. Like we've talked to Duncan countless times, and it's just like to see him achieve this level that he did not have. Like, he was coming on and hitting those shots earlier in his career when nobody knew who the hell he was. And he certainly got a boosted confidence from Jimmy and everybody else during that 1920 season. But then he went through the contract issues and injury problems. And now he is here back.
The 2-year shooting slump is over, man. Like, he's back. Imposter syndrome, no more. Now he's looking around and like, no, you don't belong on the court with me now. It's an incredible turnaround with the confidence now. My favorite part, I have to point this out. 10 of his 14 shots were from 3-point range. I love
60%.
I love it. That's the ratio. 10 3-pointers, David, that should be the minimum that he shoots in every game this season. He should be averaging 10 threes a game minimum. There's no reason for him not to, especially when he's shooting them in like this. And yeah, dude, you still got your 4 layups at the basket. Congrats. You got to show off, and you had basically your highlights from this game. One more highlight from him. That was the A highlight. That's like #1 spot in the highlight reel. B highlight for Duncan Robinson. Drives to the bat or saves the ball going out of bounds, tiptoes the baseline, flings the ball to the corner to Jaime Jaquez Jr. in the 4th quarter, and Jaime drains a corner 3 to put the Heat up back by 11, I believe. The Nets had cut it to 9 at that point. Wasn't really a dagger because the Heat didn't really need a dagger.
They took their foot off the gas over the last couple of minutes, and that's fine.
Brooklyn was going to make a run. We knew that. That's a really well-coached team with a lot of talent on it. So, but it was an important play nonetheless. It was one that impressed me. So, 2 credit cookies.
Yes, I think 2 for and I think that transitions perfectly into Jaime, who again continues to show like just a really big overall game, high IQ, always makes the right decision, makes things happen. Something you pointed out for his whole career now. Yeah, he does stuff.
Hashtag do stuff.
And that 3-point shot. I mean, there was that game. What game was it where he like missed every 3-point opportunity, and we're like, oh, he's still trying out there, but he's not really doing enough offensively. And from that point forward, everybody in that locker room has his back. They continue to build that confidence, and now he's out there playing 4th quarter, huge minutes. They didn't play the whole 4th quarter this time, but he still played pretty significantly, and he hit that big shot down his stretch. He just seems to be very comfortable, and defensively, he did a great job. I want to say it was Lonnie Walker in one position. Walker had been killing them in that quarter, and then they put Jaquez on him, and he did a really good job of bodying him up, moving his feet well, adjusting on the fly, and just limiting him to a forced pass there. But really, really strong game from Jaime. So at least a cookie for him.
2 for 5 from 3-point range. That's 40%. Let me ask you this. What do you think his 3-point percentage was coming into this game for the season? Just off the top of your head, take a guess.
35.
28%. But you know what? He shoots it like a guy who's shooting 35%, and I love that. I love that. You know what? Because I think it'll be closer to 35% by the time the season is over. He shoots with such confidence from distance. He is quick with the trigger. He has the green light. He's been empowered to have that in addition to all his other responsibilities. 5 assists for him tonight on a night where Kyle Lowry only played 24 minutes because of some early foul trouble and because he wasn't as good as the other guys that were on the court tonight. So, and I think there was some stuff with matchup-wise. Brooklyn's a long, big team. Spencer Dinwiddie is like much bigger than Kyle Lowry and things like that. But Jaime Jaquez is just playing with a ton of confidence, and you love to see it. 1 cookie for him. Let's go to Kevin Love next.
Yes. I think he had a great game, very impactful. Continues to get the backup center minutes. No Thomas Bryant tonight. And he just did a lot of things. Drew 2.5 charge like within his first minutes into the game. Like, he was really impactful there. He kind of just understood exactly how. Like that third one wasn't called in his favor, but it might as well have been. I think it wound up turning into a shot clock violation. But either way, he was just moving his feet well, rebounding actively, keeping Day'Ron Sharpe off the boards, getting Nick Claxton into foul trouble. Like, he did a lot of sharp things there. And he just, again, spaces the floor so well, too. So I think
it's making sure, for the most part, that one of Kevin Love or Duncan Robinson were on the court at all times, kind of staggered their minutes, which is hard to do when you're talking about 2 guys who play completely different positions. Kevin Love tonight, a team high, plus 16. 1 cookie for Kevin Love, another cookie for Bam Adebayo, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block, was a very tidy 8 of 15 overall, so 53% shooting. We haven't talked a lot about Bam recently in our credit cookies segments because we almost just take this for granted. Another game that we're just going to take for granted because we're just so excited about what all these other guys are doing. But Bam Adebayo, man, he just rolls out of bed and gives you something close to 20 and 10 and a few blocks and a few steals on efficient shooting every night. His mid-range stuff, really important for the Heat's offense in this one.
Yeah. I think if we're talking about how the team in general kind of figured it out on the fly, I think Bam's growth in the context of the game really stands out because he did struggle early on. And then as the game went on, and then he had that one dunk over Nick Claxton where he kind of just powered through. It was circa 1998 in Alonzo Mourning, just unstoppable. He just kind of just leaned his shoulder into him. And Claxton, as good a defensive player as he is, you just can't hang. You're not strong enough. That's basically what it came down to. And he let out a big bellow, cheered everybody up, and everybody was just psyched up after that. And then from that point, a lot of great transition baskets, but his touch around the hoop is so good. He's just constantly moving, doing a great job. Limited Claxton to 16 points too. So solid overall game from him. Just not one that we've come to expect in a season where he's been like one of the top 10 players of the league.
I have it charted here, 4 for 4 in the restricted area. You love to see that. The fact that the Heat have been doing this mostly without Tyler Herro, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by Jase Medical. We spent a lot of time talking, you and I. We get fired up together on wins like tonight and losses. Well, we haven't seen a loss in a while, but still, who starts and who sits? Tyler Herro? Who knows? Caleb Martin entering into the lineup today, but I'm thankful for that connection that we have. And today, I want our chat to be a little bit more personal because I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel. Bring on the next natural disaster or whatever supply chain issue might manifest because you're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis or Viagra. This is possible because of our friends over at Jase Medical. Go online right now to jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And you can get your 12-month supply of your daily medications. And remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout, and you get a discount too. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. I'm so thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut my pills in half to have them. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply, and I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than your local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. So if you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily medication, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. And remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your next purchase at Jase Medical.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Let's get to your listener questions. Thanks to everybody who sent those in on Twitter using the hashtag AskLOHeat. You can also send in questions for future mailbags, lockedonheat@gmail.com. You can also send questions to us on Instagram at LockedOnHeat. This question comes from our friend Josh, who writes in, I know Tyler Herro is part of this win streak in 2 of these games, but is it good or bad that the Heat are going on this run mostly without him, similar to the playoffs last year? David, what do you think?
I think it's both, and I know that's not quite the decisive answer. Yeah, but the reason why I say that is because I think it's bad because we just went through an offseason where Tyler Herro was so devalued from a narrative perspective, not based on anything actually on the court, but because he was hurt in the first game of the playoffs and Miami went on their long run, and then the whispers start to get louder about Miami's offense and what Tyler does to that offense, kind of monopolizes it to a certain degree. And I certainly have been critical of those occasions when he has been a little too ball dominant, not necessarily sharing as much and playing off ball the way he should. So that's why I think it'll be bad is now all of a sudden for 4.75 of this 7-game win streak, Tyler hasn't been a part of it, and we'll start to hear that buzz grow louder again. Is it time to move Tyler Herro? Is Tyler Herro even necessary to Miami's offense? Kind of forgetting that during their 5-game losing streak when nobody else could hit a shot, Tyler was the only player who really stepped up. Him and Bam Adebayo, I should say, because both Bam and Tyler were very good during that stretch. So I think that's the bad part of it. The good part of it is I think now all of a sudden you're going to have a much more well-rounded cast. You're going to have guys who have been comfortable finding their spot. And I don't think that there's enough ego on this team because we just haven't seen that with Miami at any point over the last few seasons. Everybody knows they're going to get their touches. Somebody's going to find an opportunity, whether it's by injury or something else. You're going to play. You're going to get a chance to step up. And now that you've got this experience, Hawkins playing big minutes, Duncan feeling that confidence like he has in a while, Kevin Love finding the fountain of youth off the bench after having been a DNP CD for a number of games, that just helps. And you can incorporate Tyler, who's still a prolific offensive player and an improved defender and playmaker. If you can get those versions of a deeper Heat squad with a better, more precise and efficient Tyler Herro, this team is unstoppable.
Unstoppable. Okay. Well, look, there is a very real thing that happens when Tyler Herro is in the lineup and then when he's removed from the lineup. And it forces Jimmy Butler to do more. It puts Jimmy Butler in charge. And I think an underrated aspect when we're talking about a team's success is a very clear pecking order. You saw this with Denver last year. Nikola Jokic is option number 1. Jamal Murray is option number 2. And everybody plays off of those 2 guys. It's very hard to have an option 1 and a top option 2 and a top option 3. It's very, very difficult to do that. In fact, we don't really see it ever work out outside of the big 3 Miami Heat.
Yep.
Where Chris Bosh was basically not getting anything run for him. So even calling him a number 3 option is a little bit of an exaggeration. Or the Warriors with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. And even then, like, Klay Thompson wasn't really getting stuff run for him, right? He was just sort of playing off of other guys. With Miami, the way it works with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Herro, those are very much options 1, 2, and 3, and all of them kind of need the ball, and all of them have a hard time kind of playing off of each other. Jimmy and Bam don't space the floor traditionally. We're talking about Jimmy starting to space the floor. He's taking like 3.5 3-pointers a game this year, right? That's not really a floor spacer. Bam doesn't do it. He has 1 3-pointer in the flow of the offense all season. Tyler Herro does space the floor, but, you know, there's defensive issues and the fact that he holds the ball a lot, where Jimmy also has to hold the ball a lot. Tyler Herro, average seconds per touch this season, 4.04 average seconds per touch. That compared to Duncan Robinson, who's taken his place in the starting lineup. Duncan Robinson, 1.98 average seconds per touch. Basically holding the ball half as long as Tyler Herro. I think if that world that you're describing, David, that Tyler Herro is a little bit more efficient and precise. I like those words that you used. I just don't hold the ball as much. If you could be more Klay Thompson and less Bradley Beal, I think that would do a lot for his game. I don't know that he wants that for his game. I also know that you can't ask Jimmy Butler to score 36 points every night. That's like fair. He did tonight. And there are going to be games where you do need Tyler Herro. I thought Tyler Herro was playing really well. I thought he was making winning plays this year. I think a lot of the things went against him in the early parts of this year. When you have him, Kyle Lowry, and Kevin Love in the starting lineup, those are 3 negative defenders in your starting lineup. Just like the rest of the team, Tyler Herro has not lost a game that Haywood Highsmith has been a starter alongside with them. And we've talked about how transformational of a decision that's been early on in the season. So it's too soon. It's too small of a sample. I think it's really easy for people to draw that line between the playoffs last year and this 5-game sample size that we're talking about here. I'm not ready to go that far to say that the Heat are better without Tyler Herro.
No,
I would rather get a larger sample size before I make that conclusion. But I will say there's going to be instances where they need Tyler Herro. But I do think there is something to be said about cleaning things up in terms of the pecking order and his specific role when he's part of the starting lineup. And then when he's in that second unit, Tyler Herro cooks. Let him go. But when he's on the court with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, it's got to be a little bit cleaner.
I agree 100%. The term I keep using is the offense is just different without Tyler there. It's not that it's better or worse. It's just different, and it kind of allows everybody else to have an opportunity to score, and they've risen to the challenge. It could just as easily have gone the other way as well. But I wonder, and I think a lot of people have started to contemplate this as well, does the injury allow Spo the opportunity to say, at least for now, Tyler, we're going to bring you off the bench so that he can continue to thrive in those second units, and allows Duncan to stay with the starters and provide the spacing that Jimmy and Bam both desperately need? Because between those two and Tyler, who loves to operate in the mid-range, that kind of clogs things up a little. Not just the over dribbling or the time of possession for Tyler, but the fact that he does break down. He's not a catch and shoot guy, never has been since his days in Kentucky, does not want to be that type of player, as to your point. So you wonder whether or not it's just kind of more effective for him to come off the bench, at least in the short term, until he can kind of figure out that nuanced balance.
I'm not going to rule anything out as an option. It's definitely something that I thought about. I also wonder if there's something to be said about starting Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson. Because you're talking about who the best backcourt guys have been. Both of those guys have been better than Kyle Lowry this year. You could even say Tyler Herro's been better defensively than Kyle Lowry in certain spots. I think at the point of attack, he's been better than Lowry. I don't know. I only bring that up to go to my first point. I won't rule anything out. I think everything's on the table. It's very hard to basically spend a summer trying to trade Tyler Herro for Damian Lillard and then bring him off the bench. But there is definitely something to him maybe just being the best sixth man in the league and just letting him lean into that and embrace that. I just don't know that you also want to pay $20-25 million for that player either. But yeah, maybe if you're just trying to increase the spacing around Jimmy and Bam, maybe it's Tyler and Duncan in that starting lineup. And I've kind of been toying around with that in my head. So who knows?
How do you get Tyler to buy into a role where he plays more off ball? Because that seems to kind of be like he can create pressure as an off ball mover, a cutter, things that he doesn't typically do. Because he
is not on Spoelstra. It's not on Spoelstra. That's Jimmy's job. That's on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler says, I'm running the show now. You're going to play off of me. And in so many words, and he could finesse it the way that Jimmy Butler would finesse it if he would finesse it. But that's on Jimmy. That's not on Spo. That's on your star player. Hey, thanks for carrying us for the first 2 weeks on offense while I was getting into regular season form because I didn't play in the entire preseason. I got this now. I'm going to make life easier for you so you don't have to do all that stuff. By the way, in those first 5 minutes where he couldn't make a field goal, I'm thinking this is the first game that they're going to miss Tyler Herro because that's somebody who could break down a defense and make those complicated shots and things like that. There are going to be times where they need that. But yeah, that's on Jimmy just taking on that number one scoring role. But like we said, we don't think that he can or wants to do that for a full regular season. And then that's where Tyler comes in. So it's tough. It's not easy here.
I think that's kind of a potential disaster, right? Like, I mean, you say that, and we know how the delicate balance of the locker room works. Like, I mean, Jimmy will talk his, but he can't tell Tyler, hey, back the F off. It's my ball now. This is kind of where I feel like
finesse it. Like you said, look, I can let me run the offense here. Let me get you better shots.
Well, what about UD? Like, isn't this his role now to be that go-between? Like to say what maybe nobody else is willing to say because he's a front office guy now. He's like, listen, man, you're great. We know we love you. We love you. He's talked to him consistently throughout the whole link to Dame Lillard process and everything else. And now he's going to have to force him to swallow another bitter pill, right? Which is to say, you know what? You got to change your role in offense a little bit. It doesn't take away from who you are as a player. It just has to bend a little bit because this team can be better.
Maybe it's everybody. Maybe it's Spo showing them the numbers, right? Spo's got all this analytics stuff. He's like, hey, catch and shoot opportunities. Let's get these efficiency numbers up. Tyler, you want to be an all-star? Here's how we do it. Here's the roadmap. It's less of the on-ball stuff. It's more letting us get you easy looks. And it's all symbiotic. And again, you say, in the starting lineup, this is the role. And then when you're running that second unit, you get that other role. And Tyler Herro can basically have his cake and eat it too. He can have the boost in efficiency numbers while also getting a chance to run the show with the second unit. That might be the way to frame it. But honestly, man, I don't think that's going to take that much work. I think Tyler Herro wants to win. I really do. I know that I'm on here as the constant Tyler Herro apologist, but I've talked to him. I think I appreciate his game. I don't think he really would care that much. I just think it's like you said, he's never really been that player. So it's hard to just become that player overnight. It's much harder said than done, but we'll see what happens here. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast app.